Hi, my name is Brennen. Welcome to my channel. This is a video in two parts. The first part, I'm going to discuss the history of my channel, my identity and how it's changed over time and how it's coincided with my experiences online. And I'm going to react to some of my old videos that I made. And in the second part, I'm going to talk about the term transtrender, how it's been used for and against me, and a little bit about reclamation, a little bit about the history of that word, brought to you by CopsHateMoe.
Hello everyone, hi.
Also, this video will be sponsored by Atlas VPN. It's a pretty jam-packed video. I hope you enjoy it. And if you do, subscribe to my channel, like this video, and leave a comment with how you feel about it. Enjoy it. So much has changed for me since I started my channel 8 years ago. But I think most of the significant changes have happened in the last year or so. I have completely reworked my career path and my future. I have gained 39,000 subscribers. I've met some of the coolest people I've ever met. I've created a really awesome community and surrounded myself with really amazing people. I have started testosterone. I'm a year on testosterone. I cannot believe that's real. And I have a date for top surgery, which is so wild and exciting. And I don't think I could have done that and gotten to this point without the amazing community that I've built online. And y'all have been so supportive, donating to my top surgery fund. But I always feel really weird about asking for money without giving you something in return, which is why this video is sponsored by Atlas VPN. I'm blue now. By clicking my affiliate link in the description, y'all can get access to the best deal on a VPN I have ever seen. It's literally only $139 a month for their 3-year plan. You'll be helping yourself feel safer online, and you'll be helping me pay for top surgery. Y'all have heard of a virtual private network. Atlas VPN is a tool that encrypts your data and hides your virtual location. When you connect to a VPN server, your device is given a new IP and DNS address. All of the traffic is encrypted and routed towards the VPN server, which, when the traffic arrives at the server, the VPN server decrypts the information and allows the traffic to access the desired destination. I'm a trans person with an online presence and a fair amount of haters. I need Atlas VPN to help me feel safer and more protected online. In addition to all that protection, they have this cool function on their mobile app called the Data Breach Monitor. By inserting your email address, the tool scans the internet to see if it ended up in any recorded data breaches or data dumps that includes emails, names, passwords, and other sensitive information. You can even turn on notifications for it so you're aware of such incidents, and you can change your passwords before anyone has a chance to steal that information. If I know anything about trans guys, it's that we love Tom Holland's Spider-Man, but no MCU Spider-Man films are available on like any streaming services in the US. But now I just open the Atlas VPN app, connect to Canada, reload Netflix, and here we have both Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Spider-Man Far From Home. Like I said, Atlas VPN is running a huge discount for their 3-year deal for just $139 per month with a 30-day money-back guarantee. The deal won't last for long, so make sure to check it out by clicking my affiliate link in the description. You'll be helping yourself get protected and helping me pay for top surgery. Thank you so much to Atlas VPN for sponsoring this video and supporting trans lives. I think I would be lying if I said my YouTube channel and what has happened to me because of my YouTube channel didn't have any effect on how my identity has changed over time. And I think it would be cathartic to take a look back, walk through my history as a content creator and as a queer person. I just want to tell y'all about some wild and random events that happened to me because of my channel and that has brought me to the person I am today. And also, I'm interested in answering the age-old question, is Brennen Beckwith, the OG transtrender, still a transtrender at all?
Hi, I'm Brennen Beckwith, and this is the Brennen Beckwith video blog.
So in order to move forward with my content, I feel like I have to look back at where I came from, evaluate my past in order to determine where to go. And of course, I'd like to see how I became a transtrender in order to determine if I am still one. I think there's over 200 private videos on my channel. I was kind of all over the place genre-wise. I made vlogs, life updates, motivational shit, story times, basically anything that I felt strongly enough to make a video about, I did. But what I want to focus on today is the queer content that I made, because that's what I got the most hate for, and that is what my channel is about now, and it has the most to do with how my identity has changed over time. So,
What's your favorite part of Tumblr? Alright, my favorite part of Tumblr is probably the people.
I came out as pansexual on my YouTube channel when I was 15 years old. I'm not going to react to that video because it included a bunch of my friends from Tumblr, and I don't know if they would appreciate being shown to my audience now, 8 years later. Basically, the only viewership of my channel at that time was from my Tumblr account. Yeah, I had a pretty famous Tumblr in 2012, 2013-ish, and it was about YouTubers. This is a real part of my story. I'm not gonna shy away from it, and I think it has a relevant impact on my identity, so I'm gonna talk about it. It's part of my story. I have to tell you, it was a Tyler Oakley blog and other YouTubers like Troye Sivan, Connor Franta, Dan and Phil, but it was mostly a Tyler Oakley blog. Honestly, I was a really active Tumblr user between 2010 and like 2015. So I was there for like all of the wild renaissance of Tumblr. Basically everything Sarah Zed has made a YouTube video on, I have been somewhat involved with to some capacity. And I think there's no way to separate my queer identity at that time from my experiences with Tumblr. And I don't think that that is a bad thing. There was a time on the internet where Tumblr was seen as just the most cringy place that created snowflakes and SJWs and trans-trenders. If you found out or learned about your identity on Tumblr.com, it somehow invalidated all of your feelings, all of your thoughts, and all of your ideas because Tumblr was just a cringy wasteland of SJWs. If you found out about your identity from a certain website, somehow it was just completely invalid. In the past few years, I've tried to distance myself from the Tumblr community. I've tried to separate my identity now from my identity back then, because back then it was shaped by the information I got from Tumblr, the friends I had on Tumblr, and the support I had on Tumblr, and somehow I got it in my head that that was just wrong and incorrect and invalidating. So I've tried to like justify my identity outside of what I learned on Tumblr, but that's just not accurate, and it's not a bad thing to have learned about your identity from a website. I don't mind people knowing that I learned about my identity on Tumblr because it's not a bad thing, and I'm trying to whittle away at this annoying stigmatization of queer people that got their identities from Tumblr.com. I don't mind people knowing how I found myself, how so many people found themselves and found community and met some of the first queer people they would ever meet and learned about queer identities in a really cool space. Sarah Zed always calls Tumblr users earnest, and I identify with that so much. We were just kids excited about sharing and learning as much information about queerness as we possibly could. We were just talking about our feelings and validating other people's feelings and making friends who had the same feelings as we did. I don't think there's anything wrong with feeling a certain way and then finding a label that fits how you feel on a website that you enjoy and trust. I had to get information about my identity somewhere. I was going to school in Virginia. It's not like I was gonna learn about transness and sex ed. I didn't feel like my body represented who I was. I didn't feel like I was attracted to people in the same way that people around me were attracted to people. And so I found labels and a community that fit and validated those feelings on a website that I already enjoyed and cared about, which is totally fine and normal, and I should have never been ashamed of it. Lots of trans people have learned about their identities on the internet. They've learned about their identities through websites like Reddit and YouTube, and now TikTok is a major platform for learning about queer identities and building queer community. But hey, getting my identity from Tumblr.com made me a true trans-trender. So my channel was started in 2013 because I just wanted to make little videos for my Tumblr followers, and I was a YouTuber Tumblr blog, so obviously I felt like I needed to be a YouTuber too, I guess. So that leads me to the summer of 2015, where I moved to a different state and I had no no real friends. All of my friends were from Tumblr, and some of us decided to make a collaboration channel. That doesn't really have to do with anything. I probably shouldn't have even told you that. I'm not going to help you find that collaboration channel, but it did lead me to learning more about my queer identity and making more YouTube videos. That summer, I spent a lot of time thinking about my gender identity, and I came out again as gender fluid in another YouTube video. A lot of interesting things happened to me because of that video, and I will tell you about them, but first I want to react to it live. Hello, welcome to my live stream setup. I'm a reaction YouTuber now. This is so much. Look at my hair. Look at the terrible lighting. I still have terrible lighting, but like in different ways. My nails. Oh my goodness. This is gonna be a lot.
Hi, I'm Brennen Beckwith, and this is #DareToBeYou, where Tyler Oakley has challenged us to tell the world something about ourselves.
Wait.
And
okay. So Tyler Oakley had this like little campaign. I don't even remember what it was. But it was essentially like #DareToBeYou, and you like shared things about yourself that were like different, and he like was like gonna put it in a video or something. I don't even remember. I didn't get in his video or anything, but I think that this video was like one of the top videos on the hashtag. This is all coming back to me right now. I literally came out because of Tyler Oakley. Y'all don't understand. I was obsessed. I was gonna come out as genderqueer. I probably did it sooner than I would have because of Tyler freaking Oakley. Why am I crying?
something that has been on my mind
Because this is emotional.
for a very long time. I haven't been entirely honest with my...
So I remember some people saying that this was fake crying. It wasn't. I was very, very emotional all the time. I was very emotional about my identity. Only reason I don't cry as often as I did is because I'm on testosterone. This is real. Like, this is real. I know it looks fake. I can see why people were like, why are you crying before you're even talking about yourself? It's because I probably did multiple takes of this, and I probably was crying for every single one.
My YouTube channel and my friends, especially not my family, but most of all, I haven't been honest with myself. I always thought I was weird or odd for some days liking girl stuff and liking being a girl and liking my body and liking who I am. But most days I hate it.
Oh.
Most days I hate my body, and I hate being called a girl, and I hate...
Oh.
I always thought I'm not completely transgender and I'm not completely cisgender. And
oh, sweetheart. I don't know why I'm crying so much.
Exactly.
I think that this is like a good representation of like my growth. I'm way more secure in my identity now than I was, what, 6 years ago? I don't explain it very well in this video, obviously, because I was literally just coming out. I explain my identity way differently now. I don't say stuff like, I like girl things some days and I like, you know, boy things other days, like I said it in this video. That was like my understanding of it then. So I literally can't even knock like this version of Brennen, because like that's how I felt. Like that's how I knew how to articulate it then, and I still feel that way. I can just articulate it a little bit differently. I literally forgot like how far I've come and how much I've changed.
I didn't feel like I belonged in any of those realms.
Realms. I would probably say
the
categories
word gender
now.
fluid. I'm gender fluid. Some days I'm a girl,
And
but
some
most days I'm
yeah.
a guy. And it doesn't matter.
This is a little bit emotional. This is like a very, it's basic. I'm gonna say it's basic. It's a really basic coming out, not gonna lie. But this is part of like my story, right? Like, I've learned so much since then. You don't know how to articulate everything when you're first coming out.
Some days I'm a girl, and some days I'm a boy, but I will always be Brennen.
Oh,
I will always
that's
be
so
Brennen.
sweet. Like, that's just the sweetest. That's not really how I explain it now. I don't think my gender fluctuates as much as it did when I first came out, and I think it was fluctuating because I was still figuring things out. It was a really sweet thing for me to say, Sometimes I'm a boy and sometimes I'm a girl, but I'm always Brennen. That's the sweetest. Like, that's the sweetest thing. It's simple, it's to the point. It's not really how I would explain myself now, but I have more terms now. I have more experience in the queer community now to, you know, express my identity, and I have thought a lot more about my identity over these 6 years. So of course I can explain myself a little bit differently, a little bit better. And of course I understand myself a little bit differently and a little bit better. But even back then I was on the right track. Sweetheart.
This is me daring to be me.
This is lame.
So good.
Oh, that's sweet.
Thank you, Tyler Oakley, for this opportunity to say the things that I need to say. I'm Brennen Beckwith. This is Dare to Be You. Until next time, goodbye.
That was a lot. I think for the most part, I said exactly what I felt back then. I definitely feel a little bit differently now. I can explain myself a little bit better. But yeah, wow. That was something. That video did some really interesting things for me that I did not expect at all.
I'm going to be on MTV's True Life on an episode called I'm Genderqueer.
Even though I did not end up in Tyler Oakley's compilation video, I did get contacted by MTV's True Life. Just saying that out loud is so funny to me. I cannot believe that happened to me when I was 17 years old. Let me explain. I was on an episode of MTV's True Life and it was called I'm Genderqueer. I cannot make this up. I had just moved to a new state, a new high school. I had all new friends, and I had just come out as gender fluid. All of the information about gender identity in the queer community I had was from Tumblr.com. Maybe I had no business talking about my identity on a national stage, but nevertheless, I felt really, really strongly about it, and I really, really wanted to share my story to the world because it was a good story. I was enjoying my life as a genderqueer person. I had supportive friends, I had supportive family, and I was excited to show the world a positive queer story. Back in 2015, non-binary identities were not very well heard of or well liked, so I got an opportunity to tell a positive non-binary genderqueer story, and I think it had a positive impact. At that time, I was really passionate about showing the world positive queer people and happy queer people. And so I wasn't going to pass up an opportunity to do that on a national stage. With my co-star Jacob Tobiah, I think we were able to show and demonstrate that genderqueer people can have positive, happy, productive lives. Yeah. My co-star was Jacob Tobiah. I have Jacob Tobiah's number in my phone because of an MTV's True Life episode that we were both in when I was 17 years old. The episode turned out okay. I think it was well received. I don't want to talk shit about True Life at all. They presented Jacob and I in a really positive light, and they didn't really sensationalize our identities in a way that they could have. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about my activism and my messaging. I had a lot of fun with the crew, and the producers were all amazing. Everyone treated me really, really kindly, and I had a lot of fun being the center of attention for a little while. But if I were given the same opportunity today, I probably wouldn't take it as easily as I did back then. I don't really like the idea of handing over my narrative to a company that can do anything they want with it, and their goal is to make money off of it, and not necessarily to make me look good or bad. That's not to say that they handled my story poorly. Like I said, I think they handled it pretty well. But they could have done anything with the footage they got from me and the things that I told them, and I wouldn't have been able to control it either way. I much prefer having complete creative control over my image and my messaging, hence my YouTube channel. And also, I'm not the same person that I was back then, so I sometimes worry that people who just see that show just have this one image of who I was back then and have no idea that I identify differently now. I also really should have gotten paid. I cannot believe I did that for free. I will never forget that experience. I think it did have a positive impact on my identity and my self-esteem. And I think it shaped a lot of how I presented myself and my identity on a public stage moving forward. And I definitely think back to it a lot when I'm talking about my identity even now. Back then, I got to share a really positive and uplifting message about queerness that would be a theme of my channel moving forward. So I think it was good. I think it was a net positive for the most part, and a really wild story. The next video I want to react to is a video called I Hate Pronouns that I posted a few months after the MTV episode aired. In the MTV episode, I used he, him pronouns because I thought that they were the most different for me, but I really had complicated feelings about pronouns that I expressed in this video, and I think it's interesting to look back on. So here's my live reaction to that. When I first started my YouTube channel, I did a series called Ask a Pan because I was identifying as pansexual, and that was like my introduction into making YouTube videos. But then when I came out as genderqueer, I changed it to Ask a Query, which is really cute because, you know, a query can also be a question, and I was also queer. I think that's cute. I stand by the pigtails. I really do. I stand by the two little buns. A lot of people really hated that look. Even my friends were like, Brennen, that's not really the look for you. But I stand by it. I think it's cute.
Hi, I'm Brennen Beckwith, and this is Ask a Query episode.
Aww, cute.
Get it? Query, ask a query, because I'm queer and you're asking a queer, but it's also like query, like a play on the word that like means a question. Oh my gosh, so funny. Moving.
I literally just filmed myself in 2021 explaining the pun, and I also explained the pun in the exact same way in 2016. Some things don't change.
Pronouns. So recently I was reminded that I haven't made this video yet because some people on this app were arguing about my pronouns and my preferred pronouns, and I was annoyed by it. And here's why. Pronouns. A word in the English language that we use to describe and refer to.
First of all, I don't know what app I'm talking about. Tumblr? I don't know. The graphics, the design, immaculate.
Who in their right mind decided that the only way we can refer to people without using their name is by referencing their gender?
I wouldn't have said it so annoyingly, but I stand by that. That makes so much sense in my head.
Okay, let's get one thing straight. I mean queer before we even start talking about this. I hate pronouns. I hate them. I don't like them. I dislike them.
I still don't like pronouns that much.
I strongly dislike them. I'm not a hateful person, but I hate pronouns. Pronouns, because they refer to gender, have become a part of our identity, and it's become a very big phenomenon in the LGBTQ+ community, is preferred pronouns. It's almost as important to us as our names. To give you an example, here's exactly what you'll see in an LGBTQ+ gathering of any kind.
That sounded mean.
Hello everyone, I'm so glad you came. Alright, we're gonna introduce ourselves. Just say your name and your preferred pronouns. Oh, I'm Brennen. She, her. She, her represents everything that I could not control. It's like my
What
old
a good transition. Didn't ContraPoints get in a lot of trouble for this? She was kind of different in the way that she phrased it, but I think I'm trying to get at the same thing that she was getting at, was that like it's important to like talk about pronouns and like say what your pronouns are. It does make her a little bit uncomfortable because she feels like she's outing herself or something like that. I don't know the whole thing, but I think I'm kind of saying the same thing here. 2016 Brennen was saying shit. I think it seems like I'm hating on the pronoun circle a little bit more than I do. Even back then, I don't think I hated the pronoun circle. I really didn't mind. Okay, let's see what I have to say about she, her.
Something I didn't choose, so I didn't like it. I never liked people referring to me as she, her, because I felt like my identity wasn't, you know, being respected or whatever. And then there was they, them.
Why
and
am
they,
I
them
so
is
snarky in this? Why am I so snarky? I'm not as snarky in all of my other videos. I still agree with that though. I still feel the same way about she, her pronouns. I think that people who use she, her pronouns for me are misgendering me, and it really does feel invalidating just because they are my assigned pronouns at birth.
them. And they, them is perfect for some people. It's perfectly gender neutral. But and here's my big issue.
Oh, I remember what I'm gonna say in this. I'm about to say something really problematic that I don't agree with right now.
Side note, I feel like they, them is a borrowed pronoun. Like, I know a lot of people in the community are gonna fight me on this because it actually is a very good pronoun for people who identify with it and feel close to they, them, and I think a lot of people can rock they, them. Like, yes, you go with they, their pronouns, but for me, I've always felt like it's a borrowed pronoun and it's not really ours. It's not really made for it, and Webster have changed the definition of they, them to be able to refer to multiple people and also someone who doesn't identify as male or female. So good on Webster and good on Oxford, but I just never liked it. I don't know why. I just have never felt close to they, them.
Okay, Brennan. Okay, I don't agree with that. I don't think that it's a borrowed pronoun. I think that language is living and words derive from other words and other meanings, and meanings change and definitions change, and that doesn't mean you're borrowing or stealing or anything like that. I use they, them pronouns now, so like whatever. I use he, they, am pronouns. That was problematic.
So then all that was left was he, him. I've still never felt close to it. I felt like it was just good enough. And if you've heard me speak at all, you know that good enough is not really good enough for me. I've never really identified with them, especially because when you use he, him pronouns and you don't have a penis, it's almost like people think that you're completely transgender, and I'm not completely transgender.
I really can't stand by Brennen right now. This was in high school, y'all. Don't come for me. What I meant by completely transgender probably would say now completely binary transgender. I identify completely as transgender, but I don't identify as completely binary transgender. I don't know why I said penis. I don't know why I needed to say that. That was uncalled for. But what I meant to say was if I just use solely he, him pronouns, I might feel a little bit invalidated in my non-binary identity because I don't identify as completely binary transgender. I identify as transgender, but I don't identify as binary transgender, so he, him pronouns, or solely he, him pronouns, wouldn't completely represent my identity. But I'm way, 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 way more comfortable with he, him pronouns now.
Here is my once and for all blanket statement. Listen up.
It's not once and for all.
I don't care. You can use whatever pronouns you want to for me. I don't care. I really don't. There's a big reason I don't care. Because I know who I am. And I don't need anybody to validate that. I don't need anyone else to validate my identity. I know who I am. I know that I'm not just a boy, and I know that I'm not just a girl, and I really don't need pronouns to define me. Whatever you use works. A lot of people really, really do care about their pronouns, and their pronouns are a part of their identity. And so you need to respect those pronouns. For me, I don't care. I'm going to be going into this world. I'm going to be speaking to lots of different people, and I am not going to be bogged down by defending my pronouns. It really kind of distracts people from what's important, especially in situations like when someone asks me a question or tells someone about me, and the only response that they get is, you use the wrong pronouns, because that's just a distraction, and I don't like that. So here it is. I don't care. I really don't. Use whatever you want for me. Just focus on something other than what pronouns you use for me. Cool. We're done.
That was an effective way for me to express where I got my validation from, and what I really cared about at the time was queer activism. And what I cared about was I wanted people to talk about what I was saying. I wanted people to talk about who I was as a person. I didn't care what pronouns they used to reference me. I just cared that people were talking about me, or people were talking to me, or people were talking with me. I was smart. A little bit silly. The first part of this video was a little bit silly, but the end, I really stand by what I was saying there. I totally understand why I didn't care about pronouns. I agree with what Brennen was saying, but I advocate for myself a little bit differently now, feel a little bit more strongly because I was made to feel more strongly, because I went through years of being invalidated on purpose, because I had that caveat of I don't care about what pronouns you use for me. So people used that against me. And I wish I could just go back to that feeling where I felt so strongly about not feeling strongly about pronouns. I wish I could go back to that. She, her was used against me, so it was weaponized against me. So now I feel really strongly about defending my pronouns, or at the very least making my pronouns clear and making it less and less of a choice for you. At the same time, in the real world, I don't really defend my pronouns that much. And I think that comes from this old Brennen Beckwith mindset. So often so, when you correct people on your pronouns, the conversation gets lost. I still feel for Brennen here. And I think that I just articulate those feelings a little bit differently. And I have 3 sets of pronouns because I still don't necessarily care too much. I'm not going to make too much of a fuss, but at the same time, I do care about my identity being validated, and I do care about being seen for who I am and who I identify as. So that's kind of the middle ground. Yeah, wow, that really made me think. That one, this Brennen really made me think. That was a whirlwind of a video. I think it's a pretty trender thing to not care about your pronouns, and it's also a trender thing to have multiple pronouns. So I think I'm on the right track for still being a transtrender. I graduated high school in June 2016, and another really wild opportunity happened for me that summer. HBO's Suited did a video competition that I submitted a video for, and I won. I was flown up to New York City. I stayed in the fanciest hotel I have ever stayed in my life, in the middle of Manhattan. I got a free suit from Bindle and Keith. We did a whole ass day-long photo shoot in New York City. I went to 2 Broadway shows. I went to the premiere of HBO's Suited. I met Jacob Tobiah and Jeffrey Marsh. I met Ray and Daniel from Bindle and Keep. I met HBO producers and a lot of amazing queer people doing amazing things in the queer community. I probably made videos about it, but I don't know if they're worth like reacting to live. I just think that was a wild part of my queer journey. Just gonna say that. But I will react to a video that I made during that time called #ProudToBe pansexual and gender whatever, where I explain where my sexuality and gender identity was at in the summer of 2016, during that wild time in my life right before I started college.
#ProudToBe. Yes, I am jumping on the Pride bandwagon, because that's what you do when you're a queer YouTuber and YouTube posts a really inspirational video about coming out, and I felt obligated to, even though YouTube didn't use my coming out video in their montage.
Why
that's
would
okay.
they,
It's
Brennen?
fine. I don't care. I don't care. Why would I?
Your coming out video had like 11,000 views. YouTube was not gonna use it. Look at how salty I am, though.
I'm not salty about that at all. But I digress. It's actually incredibly important for big businesses and corporations to come out in favor of the queer community, especially during...
I did not understand the problematic nature of big businesses coming out in favor of LGBT people. This is me being a baby gay and like just totally eating up the rainbow capitalism. And I'm gonna do it a little bit more. I'm not done licking the boots of corporations in this video. I'm obviously licking boots in this because like I'm literally using YouTube's #ProudToBe when YouTube literally suppresses LGBT content and demonetizes queer content constantly just for the sake of being queer. But they made a hashtag ProudToBe, and I just jumped on it because I was a little naive queer person that wanted to get noticed, so I would use every opportunity I could.
And of course, we get a whole new array of rainbow products, like these wonderful Converse. Someone please get me the ProudToBe Converse.
I loved
Please.
Converse. I was a Converse gay for a minute.
Size 7. I will send you my address. Hashtag ProudToBe, someone who will give personal information away for a pair of Converse.
Yeah, I was so cute. I really didn't have a big following, so like saying something like send me a pair of Converse really was like harmless. I really did want a pair of those Converse. They were just too expensive. It wouldn't be my style anymore unless they had like a black pair of Converse that just had the rainbow underneath. That would be my style.
When I was coming out as pansexual, it was really fast. I learned about the word pansexual. I kind of heard it before, but I learned about it and then I read about it and then I was like, okay, I'm pansexual. I believe it. I understand it. I know it. And I've probably never been so confident in an identity than I have been in pansexuality. I don't know why. It just really fit. I mean, I made this thing like, I don't know. So the way I came out at first, though, as pansexual was
pansexual doesn't really fit me anymore, so it's just interesting to see how strongly I felt about it in high school. And I think I needed that. Like, I think I needed to feel strongly about being pansexual. Coming out as pansexual was a domino effect. I started entering more queer spaces. I started feeling more strongly about queer activism and learning more about genders. I think it answered some questions that maybe my gender identity was giving me, but I wasn't ready to actually like face my gender identity. So being pansexual kind of was it just helped me maybe process some gender identity stuff. But yeah, I don't really identify as pansexual anymore.
Through being pansexual, I kind of started learning more about gender identity. This was a lot harder for me to come to terms with. It was a lot darker of a closet. It was a lot harder for me to understand. And to this day, I still don't entirely understand it. I don't think I ever really will entirely understand my gender identity.
I'm glad that I said that because I think I still kind of feel the same way. I like to leave myself room to grow and change.
As a kid, I lived in Hawaii where gender was really not really imposed on anybody. I was in soccer and I was in hula dancing, and then I moved to Washington, D.C., and it was a little bit more imposed. Like, the boys sat on one side and the girls sat on the other, and it was weird, and I never really felt comfortable in anything, actually. I was always told that I was a girl, so I was a girl. There are many times in my YouTube channel where I say explicitly that I'm cisgender. I know even at the time that I wasn't even really sure what that was, and I never really identified as it. And I never really, felt close to the term cisgender. I decided that enough was enough, and I needed to come out as something other than cisgender. I needed to come out as genderqueer or gender fluid, because that was just something that worked for me. Like, it kind of fit. Gender fluid fits maybe the best. Genderqueer is pretty great. Gender nonconforming is a little bit better. But again, I mean, I don't know. I still don't know. I am Brennen Beckwith, and I am proud to be pansexual, gender fluid / genderqueer / gender whatever. Yeah. If you like this video, you can click the like button. Tell me what you are proud to be in the comments below. And to see where this takes me, click subscribe. I'm Brennen Beckwith. This is the Brennen Beckwith video blog.
I think like all of these videos have just shown me like how sweet I was, and I was really just so positive and nice and lovely. Definitely don't identify as those things anymore, but I think I left myself a lot of room, except for pansexual. I think it's funny how for the longest time I was like, I am pansexual and that's it, but now it's more like bisexual with like on the gray ace scale. I also don't necessarily worry about my sexuality too much. I think a better way to even describe my sexuality is that I'm T for T. Yeah, it's just interesting to see how strongly I felt about my identity being pansexual. And gender whatever is pretty good. I still like that. I still stand by that term, actually.
That's where I was at with my identity right before going to college. I had this like very positive outlook on my identity and the queer community, and I felt really good and confident in who I was. I was a little bit naive, but I mean, I think that I was, you know, putting a positive message out into the world, and I don't think I was hurting anybody.
Don't know, I am in college.
Right before college, not only was I this bright, lovely, sweet little person, I also had all of these amazing opportunities to grow my channel. Sometimes I look back and think of how silly I was for not taking advantage of all of the amazing opportunities that I had for exposure. HBO, MTV, all of the people that I met because of those projects really could have pushed me into an amazing direction with my YouTube channel if I just hadn't been so distracted and disoriented. If I was posting videos every week about the same kind of stuff, I feel like I could have even back then had a really amazing platform, but instead I was distracted by a lot of other life goals, and I just wasn't creating consistently enough to build any kind of audience. I could have gone to college in New York City or Los Angeles, in places that could have given me a geographical advantage to building my channel. But instead I went to college in Pensacola, Florida for theater. Even though sometimes I regret not taking advantage of those opportunities and not consistently posting on my channel and trying to build my channel, as much as I think that I could have done that, I also really appreciate my college career and what I learned in college and how I went to college. And I really appreciate that I was just a person for a little while. I learned things about myself and about the world outside of content creation that are invaluable to content creation moving forward. I have a life outside of YouTube. I have a private world that maybe wouldn't have been so private if I had just gone out of the gate right out of high school into content creation forever. Also, the trajectory of my life at that point, all of the people in my life were pushing me to have a more normal life trajectory. Privileged though it may be, the idea was that we graduate high school, we go to college, we, go get a higher education if that's what our career requires, and then we get a job in a profession. That was the path of least resistance for me, and that's how I ended up in Pensacola, Florida, majoring in theater. And in the end, I didn't even graduate with a theater degree. I switched my major halfway through my college career. I switched to social work. There's so many reasons that I left theater. My experience with theater is just for a different video that I'm going to make a very long time from now, because I'm not even ready to confront that trauma yet. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is I turned out the way that I turned out. I wasn't grounded enough in my activism career. I wasn't focused. I wasn't ready to make YouTube my career at that time. And I'm glad, in the end of all things, I'm glad that I did what I did. I just needed the structure and predictability that a college experience would provide for me. But that doesn't mean I gave up on my YouTube channel completely. I was still making videos in my free time, and I was still really invested in the queer community online and in the real world. During my freshman year of college, I found out about the term transtrender. I started getting called a transtrender in my comments, and I started being included in those transtrender cringe compilations that a lot of really mean people made. So I decided to make a video about reclaiming the term transtrender, and I want to react to that one. I'm allowed to say that I'm cringy. You can't say I'm cringy. Cringe culture is dead. But I can say that I'm cringy.
I've been meaning to make a video about this for a very long time, so let's get right into this word. Transgender is a word with a negative connotation.
We're doing well.
That came about right around the time where words like gender fluid, gender non-conforming, non-binary started coming up, also known as transgender identities other than male to female and female to male. I've talked about this a few times. I personally identify as gender non-conforming or genderqueer, and I've been called a transgender quite a lot. The word transgender is meant to invalidate my identity and anyone who identifies as something other than male to female or female to male, like I said. And Google defines it as someone who identifies as transgender just because it's trendy, not because like they're really transgender. Is purely a word meant to invalidate, dehumanize,
The jump
scrutinize,
cut.
and just make fun of people who identify as something other than male or female or something other than transgender. That's basically where the word comes from. That's basically why the word is used. So transgender basically means that you identify as transgender because you think it's cool and because you think it's trendy. I mean, it's basically saying that you wake up and
oh my gosh, a skit. Oh my goodness. I wear my glasses when I sleep. That's amazing. This is amazing.
I want to have an identity that is widely misunderstood, and I feel like being persecuted and invalidated. And you know what? I really want my human rights violated today. Ugh. Gonna be a bad day. And that's just not what happens.
It's bad. But I'm right. You identify as trans because you have that feeling. And then all of these other labels, genderqueer, gender nonconforming, non-binary, are just other ways of defining that feeling. It's not I wake up and decided that being trans is cool now, and so now I'm gonna do it. The skit is funny. I stand by it. I stand by Brennen.
Coming out and identifying as gender nonconforming is just as hard as coming out as transgender or gay or bi or anything else. It takes a lot of time. If anything, it's harder to come to terms with it because it is so new and it is so strange to feel. It's so strange to feel gender queer. And so coming to terms with that is...
I don't think it's necessary to talk about what's harder to do or what's easier to do. There's so many other arguments to like talk about like how transtrender is like a shitty way to refer to people and like invalidate people's identities. I didn't really need to like talk about what's easier or harder to come to terms with or come out as. Yeah, I think that was like a little bit of a weak argument.
Incredibly hard, and it's definitely not something that you want for yourself.
I'm like yelling.
You're gonna go
Why
through
am I
life,
yelling?
and life's just gonna be a little bit harder. Like, that's it. Life is just gonna be a little bit harder if you identify as gender nonconforming. You're constantly misgendered. You're constantly misunderstood. You're constantly persecuted. You're constantly looked down upon. And to add on to that, you're called things like transtrender. Who would want to identify as something that's persecuted if they weren't really that thing? It's just another term that invalidates new identities that are coming out. My point is, just because it's a new identity, it's a term that you've never heard before, it's a term that's just been created to kind of match the way that some people feel, doesn't mean it's a non-existent term, doesn't mean it's not how we feel, and it definitely doesn't mean that...
I'm pretty sure that these terms have been around for a lot longer than I realized in this video, and definitely the idea of gender without a binary has been around for centuries. But I think my point here is just because, you know, these terms have been popularized right now doesn't mean that they're not real feelings.
We just decided to make up this term so we could be special or that we could feel trendy, because there's nothing trendy about being invalidated at every turn.
I think I would word that differently now. It's not necessarily trendy to be breaking gender norms. And it definitely wasn't trendy then because a bunch of people were hating on people like me, on non-binary people.
Finally, about the word transtrender, I think we need to take it back.
I think this is what got most people mad, is that I was talking about how we need to reclaim the word transtrender. We are now at a point where we are reclaiming the word transtrender. And I said it back in 2016 that we should reclaim this term, and people lost their shit.
We're gonna take this word in stride, and we're gonna turn it into something incredibly positive. Trans trender. Words are just words. The only meaning that they have is the meaning
Words
that
are
you
just
assign
words.
to them. So I've decided to see the word transgender and smile.
That's so sweet. Why did people look at me and hate me? Why did people look at me and just absolutely rip into me? I'm going to choose to be proud of this label that has been thrown in my face, that has been used to hurt people. I am going to take it back, choose positivity, and people hated it.
Product of this growing queer language that we are building for ourselves. We're taking it back, and if you want to join the quest in taking back the
I'm
word
such a
transgender,
sweetheart.
click the like button and click subscribe to follow me on all my trans trending adventures. Other than that,
I was a little loud and annoying. I'm still probably a little loud and annoying. I like to think less so. But I had like really good points. There was like one point there that was like kind of weird, didn't make a lot of sense, but I unpacked it. But for the most part, like, yeah, I explained what the word transtrender is, and I explained why I wanted to take it back. And I was right. That's what's so frustrating about that whole experience of being like ostracized and hated on the internet, because not like I was just ahead of my time. Like I was saying things that we are saying now. For my own mental health and sanity, I'm not going to fact check this next statement, so take it with a grain of salt, but it's my understanding that a trans YouTuber that's kind of like Calvin Guerra named Matt reacted to this transtrender video in the same mean-spirited way that Calvin would later react to another video of mine. And it's my understanding that this reaction video that Matt did is the first introduction that Calvin had to my content. Technically, this video that I made about being called a transtrender in my freshman year dorm room has started all of this. You're welcome. Even though Calvin and Matt and, you know, all of the true scum trans medicalists claimed that I was doing major damage by spreading lies about the trans community to the masses, I only had 2,000 subscribers at this point, and I was getting about 500 views per video. And most of those subscribers I gained in high school when I was like on MTV and stuff. Like I didn't have a consistent following or viewership at all. When I was in college, I was making like less than a video a month. I wasn't doing videos consistently at all. Making YouTube videos was like not even on my priority list in college, really. Like, it was fun for me and it was something I could do in my free time, like as a hobby, but I was in several clubs, I was really active in theater, and I had a ton of friends. I was incredibly social. I was going out all of the time, and I had a job on campus. I wasn't developing a following at this time. I was just posting videos every once in a while in my free time whenever like I felt strongly enough about something to make a video about. Like I was almost using my channel as like a diary at that point. And yeah, like it was cool if I could help other queer people understand themselves better, or if I could like talk about my identity in order to help other people with the same feelings feel better about themselves. But like it really wasn't like I didn't have like an ultimate goal of like making as many transtrenders as I could. I remember looking in the mirror and just thinking, that's still not flat enough. The next most noteworthy video that I made was called My Gender Dysphoria and How I Cope with It, which is the video that Calvin reacted to. Just to provide a little bit of context, when I made this video, I was a sophomore in college. I was about 18 years old, and I had a job with the university. I had just switched my major from theater to social work, and I had a little bit of free time to kind of talk about my identity a little bit more online. And so I thought that this video would just be a nice little video about how I personally experience my dysphoria. Obviously, that's not how the whole thing played out, and I am not going to live react to this video because I have it public on my channel now, so you can watch it for yourself. And also, I think I talked about it enough in my Calvin Guerra series. But what I do want to tell you is how I reacted to it when I did watch it in preparation for making my Calvin series. I really dreaded having to watch that gender dysphoria video that I made because I was really led to believe that I was really cringy and wrong and that video was just generally bad. I mean, that's all the feedback that I had been receiving about that video for years, and I really thought that I would have to write a script that kind of diminished things that I said in that video in order to like defend myself now, if that makes any sense. But when I finally sat down to watch the original video that I created, I cried. Listen, I was on testosterone and I still bawled my eyes out. Anyone who watched that video and hated it must have really been hurting because I was just so bright and kind and happy. I was sweet and soft. It was unscripted, but it was still so articulate. I explained my gender dysphoria really well. And in many ways, I still feel the same way. My style changed. I'm older now. I'm a little bit more bitter, and I definitely present more masculinely. I identify as a non-binary trans man now and not so much genderqueer, but actually genderqueer still works for me. I guess I could argue that my gender dysphoria is a little bit worse, but maybe that's just because I feel more strongly about taking medical steps to deal with it. But regardless of how I changed, what I said in that video was truly how I felt at the time, and I explained myself really, really well, and current Brennen stands behind 2018 Brennen 100%. I just don't want to distance myself from that version of me. That's part of who I was, and that's part of my growth as a queer person. So that's why I made that video public. And I did think about making a whole playlist of all of my old videos, but I don't really know how effective they would be. I was talking about stuff that's not really like relevant anymore, and I probably said a lot of like outdated information, and like you've seen in some of these reactions, like I don't agree with everything I said in all of these old videos. So I think it's best just to every once in a while do a video like this where I react to some of that old content so I can control how it's being perceived now. Some people have asked me if I changed so much, if my gender dysphoria got worse, if my style changed, if I became more masculine because of the hate that I received from Calvin and because of the criticisms about my femininity that I was inundated with. And my answer to that question is I don't really know. Maybe. I don't think that I can separate what happened to me from the person that I am today so easily. The truth is, I'll never really know if I changed so drastically because of all of the hate that I received, or because my interests changed, my career path changed, my identity changed because identities change naturally over time. Maybe it was a little bit of both. Maybe I changed to reduce backlash, to blend in, to appease the haters, or to cope with trauma. And maybe I changed because I switched my major and I stopped making content for a really long time and spent a lot more time in the real world. I don't know. I don't know, and I don't really care. Like, for example, I went from liking bright pink, everything pink, to liking red and black and everything red. I can probably say I stopped liking pink because of how much I was made fun of for liking pink. But I didn't start liking red because I was made fun of for liking pink. I started liking red years after I stopped liking pink because I got my first car and it's bright red. Our identities change and develop for a lot of reasons. And I will never be able to see what would have happened to my identity if Calvin Guerra never happened to me. The backlash happened. The trauma happened. And I can't separate my identity from that even if I tried, So I don't feel like I need to anymore. I don't need to decipher what parts of my identity were because of my trauma and what part of my identity was always there. It's not that simple, and it's not necessary to break it all down like that. Identities aren't stagnant. They're susceptible to change over time, like all things in human nature. And the reasons for those changes are not always so terribly apparent, and they don't have to be. I talked pretty extensively about what happened after Calvin Guerra made that video about me in my Calvin Guerra series, so I don't feel the need to reiterate most of this part of my timeline, but that leads me to June 2020, when I started testosterone. I don't feel the need to explain to you all the reasons that I started testosterone, but I do feel the need to clarify that I am not on testosterone or getting top surgery to shift my gender from one side of the gender spectrum to the other side of the gender spectrum. I am more so throwing my gender up in the air and seeing where it lands. I'm also getting top surgery in December, which is something I have been openly hesitant about in the past. And I don't feel like I need to address that or discuss why I've changed my mind or explain why I'm getting top surgery when I'm getting it. That's something that I just don't feel the need to get into with my general audience. But I do talk about it more extensively on my Patreon and for my Ko-fi supporters. If you're more interested in hearing about my top surgery experience, then you can go support me on those platforms. I know that some people are going to take those open hesitations that I had 3 years ago and use them to invalidate my need for top surgery now. And to those people, I just have to say, fuck you. I don't have to explain myself to you at all. I am freeing myself of the burden of proof that you are trying to force upon me. I spent a lot of time trying to defend and over-explain myself in my old videos, and I don't feel the need to do that anymore. I don't need you to have a perfect understanding of my gender identity in order for me to do good work for the trans community on my channel. The people who support me will support me without needing a detailed explanation of my identity, and the people who don't support me won't support me regardless of how detailed of an explanation I provide. Anyway, all of this video is really just leading up to the ultimate question: am I still a transtrender? What does the term transtrender even mean? Why was it used against me? Why was I called a transtrender? And how do I feel about that term now?
So I've decided to see the word transgender and smile.
In order to decide if I'm still a transtrender, we have to unpack the word itself and where it comes from. So I've asked my best friend and known trans history nerd, CopsHateMoe, to explain it to you.
Brennen has just asked me to come in and give a quick overview, a quick history of the word transtrender. So here we go. Now, it's unclear if there's one specific person who coined this term, and I haven't been able to track down its origins to one definitive post. But considering the term is a play on words, it's likely multiple different people coined it independently. There is one person I want to talk about, though, who did specifically help to popularize the term. And this is a woman called Dirt. Well, that's her online alias anyway. Now, Dirt is a cisgender TERF, and she ran a blog where she would harass and dox trans people. The TERFs and transphobes who ran these blogs would make posts where they talked about who was trans trending, and in these posts they would target specific trans people and pick apart things about them. The term was created and used to invalidate, mock, and discredit trans people. It was very dark, so yeah, it's likely it originated or at least was popularised on one of those free WordPress sites, but it's quite difficult to track down because most of these sites have been taken down now due to mass reporting from trans people in the, 2010s because of how transphobic these sites were. So as we know, the term transtrender later became used in the trans community to tear others down, popularised in trans circles by people like Calvin Garrett. But the term had been around long before Calvin started using it. Back in the day, it was used by predominantly TERFs and transphobes. So it's quite sad that trans people later went on to adopt that term themselves and weaponize it against each other. But yeah, that's sort of a vague overview of the term. I hope it was informative, but I'm going to send you back to Brennen now.
I found out about TrenderCore when I was doing research for my Calvin series and when I was getting more active on queer TikTok. And when I found it, I was so overwhelmed by emotions. I couldn't believe that this was a thing. I had been trying to run away from the term transtrender for years at this point. I had been targeted by it, hurt by it, insulted by it. I had been trying so desperately to disconnect myself from that insult. And then all of the sudden, I had found this whole community shaped by it. If I may be so humble to suggest, in some small part, I had even helped inspire TrenderCore. My bright pink mullet, my unapologetically colorful wardrobe, and my joyful attitude towards my identity was suddenly plastered all over this Tumblr tag in a good way. Through the TrenderCore tag on Tumblr and all of the new queer people experimenting with their gender identities on TikTok, I suddenly saw so much of what I lost in myself in this new generation of trans people. The parts of myself that disappeared from me for my own protection were suddenly being celebrated and uplifted and represented so beautifully. I think for a long time I had been convinced that my impact on the queer community was negative. It's so sad that I had been made to believe that all of those cute little videos I made about my identity were causing harm and misrepresenting transness and spreading misinformation. But I wasn't doing any of that. I was talking about my own personal experiences. I was being joyful, bright, colorful, and positive about the queer community in order to make others feel positive about the queer community too. I was positive about my identity because I knew that others weren't. And I just wanted people to see a queer person happy. I wanted to share my queer joy through videos. That's all I ever wanted to do. I think the term transtrender refers not only to a style, but a mindset. If you're happy with your transness, if you experience joy from expressing your identity, you must be doing it because it's trendy. You must be doing it for attention. How could anybody enjoy transness? There's no way that real trans people can enjoy being trans. The kind of people that think that way, the kind of people that call other trans people transtrenders for enjoying their identity, for feeling proud of their transness, just have a really dark, self-hating mindset. There is a movement to move away from defining transness as dysphoria because we don't want to be defined by our suffering. Because when we are defined by our suffering, it leads to terms like transtrender, it leads to transmedicalism, it leads to this idea that you have to prove your suffering, and your suffering has to be more difficult than others' suffering in order to justify your transness, when in reality, transness is not defined by our dysphoria, it's defined by our euphoria. I might not be hyper feminine, I might not love the color pink anymore, but I love my transness. I'm happy with my identity. I'm happy with who I am right now. And if that is the mindset of a transtrender, I guess I'm still a transtrender. I miss so much about 18-year-old Brennen. I miss their pink hair, their confidence, and their ability to wear dresses. But I think most of all, I miss the way they navigated the world without fear. I was always diving in head first, knowing that if I just stayed true to myself, I had nothing to worry about. I didn't care if people thought that pink was too feminine for a non-binary person. I liked the color pink. I didn't care if people wouldn't understand my identity. I understood my identity, and that's all that mattered to me. That's all that ever should have mattered. I don't know if I'll ever completely get back to that mindset. I think I'll always be hesitant about the internet now. I'll always be a little bit worried about how people will perceive me, and I'll always be careful not to share too much in order to protect myself. I will always think critically about everything I say and do in the public eye. I'll always have a skeptical edge to my content that just wasn't there before. I have a more significant platform now, which means I can make a more significant impact, negatively or positively. So it's not a bad thing that I'm second guessing myself and trying to be as responsible as possible with my content. But damn, I miss the days I wasn't worried about myself. The days where I wasn't worried about how I came off or how other people perceived my identity. For better and for worse, I am really worried about how people perceive me now, and I think to some degree I always will be. I'm not more trans now than I was when I was 18. I'm not more trans now because I identify as a non-binary trans man instead of genderqueer. I'm definitely not more trans now because I present more masculinely. And I'm not more trans because I'm more worried about how I'm being perceived. The words I use to describe my transness have changed. The medical interventions I'm taking have changed. And the ways that I express my gender identity have changed. But I've always been this amount of trans. A Brennen amount of trans. I'm not trans because it's trendy. I'm not trans for attention. I'm just trans because I feel trans. And that's not really enough proof for the people who called me a transtrender. Feelings aren't really enough for trans medicalists or true scum. Trans medicalists and true scum are always going to require some proof of dysphoria, some evidence of suffering. Gender euphoria and trans joy is never going to be enough for them. Luckily, I don't have to be enough for them, and neither do you. If you think being trans is trendy, therefore I'm just following a fad, if you think I'm doing this for attention, then so be it. Call me a transtrender. I will wear that label proudly in order to take the power away from it. My identity contains multitudes. It is a powerful mix of all of the experiences I've had in my life. This is going to sound really cheesy really quickly. Just bear with me because I think I need to say I'm non-binary, I'm transgender, I'm bisexual, I'm on the ace spectrum, I am a transtrender, but I think most of all, I'm just Brennen. Wow, I'm really going back to my roots. That is so something that 2018 Brennen would say. I hope I'm making him proud. I know myself, I know my identity, and I know that being positive about my identity will make a positive change in the trans community because it will help other trans people feel positive about themselves too. All that matters to me is that I uplift other trans people in the process of uplifting myself. I hope you value my message. I hope you come along with me in my journey of self-discovery as I use my own personal experiences with my identity to inform my content about the queer community at large. That is to say, subscribe to my channel, turn on notifications, like this video, comment if you have something to say about this, and follow me on other social media if you want to support trans creators, engage in their stuff. Thank you so much to Atlas VPN for sponsoring this video. If you want to get a great deal on a VPN, click my affiliate link in the top of the description. And thank you to my amazing, amazing supporters, my incredible audience, my Patreon supporters, and my Ko-fi supporters specifically. Y'all are so awesome. Y'all restore my faith in humanity every single day. Support and uplift trans people all of the time. Allow yourself to grow and change and know that throughout your journey, you are amazing. Thank you for engaging in my content. Goodbye.